Good morning, everyone, again. Welcome to our webinar. Today's topic will be about how to communicate animal welfare. And we have FarmIN here with us as well. I'm going to start by briefly introduce the aWISH project, which stands for Animal Welfare Indicators at the Slaughterhouse. We know that a lot of you probably have already heard this on other aWISH workshops, but it's always important to explain our project to the newcomers. So because of that, I will give you a quick overview of the project, its objective, why it focuses on certain species, and how it working to improve animal welfare in a practical way. So starting with a few key facts about the project. aWISH is a Horizon Europe project with a total budget of around 8 million euros, and it brings together 28 partners from 11 countries all around Europe. It runs from November 22 until October 26, so it's almost ending, sadly, and it is implemented through 6 pilot cases in different countries. These pilots are actually very important because they allow us to test the project solutions in real production systems across different contexts and value chains. As you can see, the consortium is quite diverse, including research institutes, universities, technology providers, and other stakeholders across the value chain. And we follow a multi-actor approach on these projects. At its core, the aim of the aWISH project is to enable large-scale automated monitoring of animal welfare. More specifically, the project focuses on collecting and analyzing animal-based indicators at the slaughterhouse, since this is a central point where large numbers of animals pass through, of course, and where we can capture valuable information about their condition and their welfare. By analyzing this information, we can gain insights into what happened earlier in the chain, for example, on the farm or during transport. And additionally, we also complement this information with other technologies specifically implemented on farm level and during the transport as well. To achieve this, the project is working on identifying and analyzing a wide range of animal welfare indicators that were previously selected in the beginning of the project. These include, for example, signs of stress, injuries, lesions, or health-related issues, like bruises or skin lesions or lung conditions. In pigs, for instance, we also look at indicators like tail biting, which is an important behavioral welfare issue, as you know. And the idea is not just to collect this information, but to actually organize it in a meaningful way and link it back to the different stages of the production process. This will allow us to better understand the causes behind these indicators and identify where improvements can be made and how. Alongside this, the project is also working on developing tools and other approaches that help interpret this data and turn it into useful feedback, like, for example, the data platform, where the data from all pilots are gathered, serving as a benchmarking tool and a way to make data from the pilot sites easier to interpret. Additionally, we also produce the Animal Welfare Indicators Catalog and the best practice guides, which can help the stakeholders understanding better animal welfare in general, and will help them as well in the decision-making process. All these tools are available on our website, so please make sure to go there and explore them a little bit further and to learn more about them, because they are really interesting, and I'm sure that you will enjoy it. So it's not only about measuring welfare, but also about assessing impact and supporting better decision making, as I said, making the information useful for the people who are actually working on the ground. Now, you might be wondering why the project focuses specifically on pigs and broilers, and there are several reasons for this. First, these are among the most produced and consumed animal species in Europe, so any improvement here can have a large impact. Second, these sectors are facing important animal welfare challenges across the different stages of the production chain. And third, because of the scale and speed of production, which translates into limited monitoring time, and we can have fast corrective actions. By focusing on these two species, the project can develop and validate solutions that are highly relevant, and that they can be later adapted to other types of livestock. That is one of the objectives. Finally, in terms of structure, the project is organized into several work packages, as always, covering areas such as the development of technologies and the piloting, the identification and validation of welfare indicators, the monitoring and improving animal welfare, the assessment of socioeconomic and environmental impacts, as well as communication and dissemination activities. And at CONSULAI, for example, we are leading this work package, the communication, dissemination, and exploitation activities, ensuring that the project results are shared and that they reach the relevant stakeholders and the target audience. That's the main reason why we chose to organize a workshop on how to communicate animal welfare, given that it's such a sensitive issue to share, but at the same time, it's so important. And for that, with us, we have here FarmIN, Katarina Stilwell, representing FarmIN. They are a big player in the animal welfare promotion, and not only animal welfare, but in animal production in general. She will give you a small presentation about them as well. And they will talk a little bit more about what's the importance in communicating animal welfare and what's the best way to do it. So Katarina, please, and thank you.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I see that you have your cameras disabled. I don't know if we could maybe whoever wants to turn their cameras on, if that's not possible, that's okay. My name is Katarina Stilwell. I am going to present myself at the beginning of my presentation, but I would just like to ask everyone to help me make this presentation a bit more dynamic, if possible. So if you have any questions, any comments, any interventions that you'd like to do, you can either raise your hand here in the top panel of the Teams meeting dashboard, or you can write it down on the chat. It will make it much easier for me to do this. And also because I don't normally do these presentations in English and online, so it would make me feel like there's someone else on that side, if that's possible. So I'm going to share my presentation and then we'll get started. As Margarida was saying, here we go. As Margarida was saying, aWISH is a very, very interesting project that's been going on for the past couple of years, focusing mainly on broilers and pigs. I am not able. Here we go. I am head of a team of vets and zootechnicians, mostly vets. We work with animal welfare on intensive farms and with the main production species. I focus a lot on poultry and pigs, but also work with small and large ruminants. My team works mainly with large ruminant and slaughterhouses as well. We do all sorts of assessments in the farm, including biosecurity assessments, but our core is actual welfare assessments and trying to help farmers improve their production practices by one step at a time, but by improving their welfare as well, or the welfare of their animals and their welfare. We never forget the farmers. I don't know, Margarida, or Sarah, if we have an idea of what the jobs of the people who are watching us are. I imagine we have all sorts of backgrounds here, so I'm going to try and keep it generic and reachable for everyone. But if someone has a question, please feel free to ask me. The other side of our job is science. We are people that come from science, believe in science, and work towards training and taking the best evidence, scientific evidence, to farmers around the world, students as well, colleagues many times are present at our trainings, and that makes us feel very honored, because it's always great to talk to other veterinarian colleagues, because it makes us feel a bit more humble about our jobs. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about today. So we like to investigate, we like to talk about animal welfare, but we always try and do it in the most objective and scientific way as possible. So a brief introduction or disclaimer. I would like to, as I said in the beginning, make this workshop a space for reflection and discussion on animal welfare. Animal welfare is a hot topic at the moment. We'll see why in a little bit. So I believe that not everyone so there are 32 of us here now. I doubt at least that we will agree on everything that I'm going to say. And I do love being challenged. I do love a good argument in the good way, okay? A good, healthy discussion. And so I would like to make this a space exactly for that. So anyone who does not agree with me, who agrees and would like to add something, please feel free to come forward. Don't be embarrassed. I know that for many of us, English might not be the first language, so I think we're all comfortable with not being comfortable with English, so don't make that an excuse not to come forward. All right, so why is it hard to talk about animal welfare? Why do people keep fighting about animal welfare? Why doesn't anyone seem to agree about what animal welfare is? Let's get into it. First, there doesn't seem to be a clear balance. There always seems we are daily bombed with images of animal abuse. Either they are legitimate or taken out of context. They happen and they are present in our day-to-day life. But at least me, I don't know how your algorithm works. Mine might be a bit broken, but I am also bombed with completely irrational claims about welfare, the things that we do not witness, at least do not witness frequently. For example, this ad from PETA, it's a few years old, maybe 10 years old now. Can't tell you exactly. It seems like it's been on my mind forever, but it came up after a video of some sheep being shorn in a fairly rough way, the video was bad, but honestly, the comeback seems even worse to me. Shows what happens to sheep after they are shorn for our wool coats. Makes no sense. So there doesn't seem to be anything in the middle. Everything seems to be extremely polarized. And I think that basically what we need to work against is the polarization, not one side or the other, is both ends. But we do have a challenge. It's not that straightforward. There are a lot of emotions mixed. And so we come to this conflict of whether it's easier to measure or to just judge animal welfare. So science has been struggling to objectively measure animal welfare, and then people who are maybe less into what science has been working on are more eager to jump into premature judgment of situations. So everyone has a different way of viewing this subject. So if I've had this slide. I've been teaching classes at the veterinary university for animal welfare. I've been doing training for farmers, technicians, other vet colleagues, and I always use this slide. I heard a comment the other day from one of my teammates saying, "Wouldn't you like to update your bunny slide?" And I said, "No, I think it serves perfectly well what I want to say. So I can change the species. It's not going to change the message." So I think it's fine as it is, and it will stay like this, because what I want to say with this slide is I can go around and show it to, half the population in this world and ask which of these animals has better welfare in its life. And I will have 4 different types of questions. Probably very few of them will be right. So I would like to know what you think, but maybe online, if we were face to face, I would be pointing at you directly and asking you what you think. But maybe I'll ask Margarida, what do you think? So we can have.
I think it really depends, as you said, because at a first glance, I think I will always choose the bottom right-hand corner.
So the wild
bunny,
the wild
yeah,
rabbit, yeah.
because
Okay.
because of that, because it's in the wild.
Exactly. So most answers that I get will say the natural state will be the one that approaches more the ideal welfare conditions. I imagine some of you might agree, and as Margarida started, it depends, of course, because these rabbits live 10 out of 10 under stress, because it's either an eagle from above, a lynx from the right, a fox from the left, a snake from the underground. So they have to search for food in the summer. They have to search for water as well, which we know, especially in our country, might be quite challenging in the hot months in the summer. So yes, they have space. They have the ability to express natural behaviors, but they also have a lot of stress in their lives. Also, I think there's something to forget about wild states, is that death is always ugly. It's never going to be, unless they are very, very, very lucky, and it's quite quick and effective. Dying in the wild, it's going to be far from what we consider ideal. And so we don't normally have that in account, but I think it might also be a factor that there is some suffering around the time of death of wild animals, being prey or predators. But also the top left leaves us with some questions, right? And then we have 2 examples of intensive farming. I know which one I don't like. I know which one has more problems, but it's also more profitable for the producer. But is it? I think we're starting to see that it's not. But I just wanted to start the discussion with animal welfare is not a static concept. It depends on so many other factors that we are rarely going to find a consensual definition and concept of animal welfare. So if we take, for example, a social or cultural context, like we have in our country with bullfighting, everyone I talk about, and I grew up in a strongly pro-bullfighting city in Portugal. And obviously me coming from both my parents are vets and have focused on animal welfare all their lives. So I came from a background who was not very well adjusted to the reality of bullfighting. And I had some interesting conversations with my colleagues in high school, which is also a great age to have ethical conversations because no one can actually make a point. But from the point of view of these people who were born and raised, welfare is not a concern. These bulls are raised for 4 or 5 years outdoors in the field. They have everything they need, and then for a few hours they are transported, ran around the ring, and then taken to the slaughterhouse. Horse welfare around bullfighting is also a concern for me personally. I don't know which one gets it worse, the horse or the bull, but from their context, it's justifiable, and welfare might not be the main issue around this show. Then we have political contexts, we have economical contexts. For example, third world countries do not prioritize welfare, animal welfare. I think all of us can fairly understand why, but we can also recognize that there are severe animal welfare issues in third world countries because the priority is to feed the population, is to raise animals at an affordable price and not prioritize other aspects of the production. Then we have religion. Religion does impact a lot the way humans see animals and the way they conceive animal welfare. I have here an image of taken from Wikipedia on kosher slaughter, where stunning is forbidden. So for an animal to be considered, for meat to be considered kosher, the animal cannot be stunned prior bleeding, which according to at least the European standards is no longer acceptable. But from the point of view of the religion, it is. So hard. We are already facing a challenge here with all of these disparities regarding the concept of animal welfare. And then my favorite, science. How science impacts the concept of animal welfare. So if you go on to Google Scholar, and I'm pretty sure if not all of you, most of you have searched animal welfare on Google Scholar, you've got over 3 million results. If you search for a drug such as ibuprofen, which we take, at least I take often because I suffer from bad sinusitis from going to the farm, so I take it almost weekly. It's got about 500,000 results. So how are we still discussing that there's no science behind animal welfare, where the proof is right before our eyes? And how are we still not being able to transmit what we already know and it's been scientifically proven?
Katerina, sorry to interrupt. We have
Yes.
here a comment about the bunny slides that maybe you would like to address.
I can't see. Let me, because I'm sharing.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please. Oh, here we go. Oh, I can see it now.
Okay, perfect.
It's I understand that maybe the wild rabbits would search for food, water, but maybe that is stimulating their seeking emotion. So it is not necessarily something bad or that we should put them in a boring environment. I agree with you. I think that searching for water and food is a part of a daily routine of any species. I think that being hungry and thirsty might be a different way of seeing things. So I don't know how many of you have been really, really hungry or really, really thirsty. Luckily, I don't think I've ever been really, really hungry or really, really thirsty. And I'm talking about going 2 or 3 days without drinking in the middle of the summer. But I think that it does add to the stress and does reduce the quality of life of those animals in that time. But I do agree with you that the part of seeking is important, and that's also one of the components of environmental enrichment is to actually incorporate not water but food into the object to make it more stimulant. All right. I hope I answered your comments. If not, please just keep writing. And Margarida, please let me know so I can see, because otherwise, otherwise I won't be able to see the comments and present at the same time. And then going the other way, animal welfare on itself is perceived very differently by many people. So we do have the farmers who have an idea of animal welfare that will be, at least for most farmers, very, very different from, for example, what the activists think of, or what the consumers, politicians, a lot of the times follow an agenda, might not believe exactly on or what they're talking about, but might be more interested if it fits their political agenda. So again, going the other way, animal welfare being the same, if we do agree on one concept, then it's still going to be perceived differently by all of these intervenients and more, probably more that I do not, I'm not sharing here. Right, sorry. I am just trying to, there we go. So for the first time, I would say, in the world's history or in the farming history, the generations are caring more about what they are buying. And one of the reasons, not only, but one of the reasons will be the animal welfare and the ethical surrounding, or the ethical background for those animal products. That allied to very active media means does bring us to a problem on what is being said about animal welfare. I am just trying to see, I'm sorry, because I had to stop projecting. Just give me 1 second. There we go. I don't like talking without seeing someone's faces, so I was just looking for Margarida and Sara to be on the corner of my screen. So social media and animal welfare, I think it brings us to the first challenge on animal welfare communication. Maybe when did we start being bombed with social media? I would say 20 years ago first. The first types of social media started appearing. Before that, we would get our news from the newspaper. the news from the TV, but they would be much more selective. It wouldn't be just anyone who would go out and publish any type of content they felt like should be shared. And then we had, again, scientific report. We had scientists filtering what was being published and transmitting that to the general population, which was a favor they did to us, because sometimes reading 30-page long scientific reports might be a job. And nowadays we have this dichotomy between science and social media posts. So how quickly can a social media post, and this is a print screen of a Portuguese Instagram page of activists. So quickly, a 20-30 second video, taken or not out of context, because not all of these, and we'll get to it, not all of these videos are taken out of context. Most things do happen in day-to-day farming, but they might not be as common. They might be an accident that the farmer was going to try and resolve. So a lot of times that's not what is transmitted to us. What is transmitted is a clip of something that looks terrible, might or might not be terrible, and then it spreads like wildfire. Once it's out, you cannot take it down. You can only respond to it. So again, we come to the dichotomy of several aspects of animal welfare, and then having a whole spectrum of meaning associated to each subject. So just as examples, if we go look at stunning before slaughter, of course that in one end we can have people say it's unnecessary, that it takes time, it takes up resources, it slows down the slaughtering process. And then on the other end, we can have people saying that it's not justifiable because we're still killing animals violently at an industrial pace, and that we have no right in doing it. So again, how do we set ourselves in the middle of these? And they are conflicts, they are open conflicts that happen. And how do we, how can we actually try and find some middle ground and find where the reason is? For example, let's talk about tail docking in piglets. I'm sorry if I'll talk a bit about pigs and piglets. I think that regarding the aWISH, the aWISH project is also appropriate, but it's also a species that I work with a lot and that I do find a lot of welfare issues, and that at least I find our interest grounds for debate. So let's get into it. Tail docking. So on one end, farmers can look at tail docking as, well, if I do dock the tails on these piglets, then I can increase the densities on my pens, and I can actually neglect rearing conditions. I might suffer less from tail biting outbreaks, and so I won't have to pay so much attention to my room temperatures, ventilation, anything that comes up. Is this true? For some cases, yes, and I do see them. So I think that they are using tail docking as not as a prevention for if something goes wrong, but in cases that they know something will for sure go wrong if they don't dock these tails. But then again, on the other end, we can also look at it as unnecessary mutilations that are just used to decrease rearing conditions and will not add anything if you do keep your conditions spot on. This is also not true. I don't know if anyone here works with undocked pigs under intensive systems. So my point of view in this is, as long as it's allowed to rear pigs with 1 square meter per finished pig, not docking tails will not be a solution, because we still don't know enough about tail biting to control all of the aspects of it, and the results can be absolutely disastrous. So tail docking is a painful procedure. I do not like to see it done in tiny little 2-day-old piglets, but the consequences of not tail docking, and this comes for example, beak trimming, I feel the same. As long as the law still allows for these animals to be reared under these densities and these conditions, even if the farmer does everything fine, the risk is still huge of massive disaster. So tail biting will be much, much, much more painful than tail docking a piglet. So there's no right answer, but definitely you cannot come forward and say it's the worst thing you can do to a pig, it's to tail dock it, and then still do everything the same, because the results will be awful. Again, veterinary care. Some farmers might see it as unnecessary expenses and do not call the veterinary when it's needed, and subject their animals to unnecessary suffering. But then we also, and this I've seen firsthand, coming from vet students saying that they do refuse treating animals because their problems come from being production animals, which is not fair. Many problems happen, and they would happen in the wild as well. We just don't see those animals. Many problems do come from the intensive farming, extensive farming, any type of farming, but veterinary care will always be necessary. And unless it's a bit like tail docking, we change everything else. Any animal in need should receive veterinary care, despite the conditions it's being raised and what its purpose is for.
Katerina, sorry?
See? Yes?
A new comment.
Okay.
Sorry, you are muted.
Sorry, I was trying to open the chat. Can you read it to me, please?
Yes. So, I apologize for this is too long to read, but I have 2 questions. First,
okay.
We have been discussing welfare a lot, and the term is often used as a ring bell word. It is also becoming more and more important in animal science. My question is, how do we define welfare in animals? I feel that humans often project their own experiences and sometimes define animal welfare from a purely human perspective. So, how can we define welfare in a way that reflects the animal's own perspective? In other words, how can we move from a human-centered definition of welfare to a more animal-centered definition? Maybe we can answer this first, and then I can move on to the seconds.
What's the name of the first person?
Maha.
Oh, again, Maha. Thank you for your comments. Again, we'll get exactly onto that right now. So maybe if I do my next few slides, I do not bring an exact definition on animal welfare because I don't think it does exist. And also, I didn't think that would be the center of the discussion today, but I do want to talk quite a bit about humanizing versus anthropomorphizing. Sorry, I'm going to struggle with the word. And the other part was, Margarida?
Was about human experiences and animal-centered definition.
Yeah.
And
All
then
right. We'll get on to that.
okay, so we have a second
Right.
question. That is, you mentioned that in third world countries, animal welfare is often not considered a priority because it may conflict with basic human needs such as food, survival, and economic stability. From a philosophical point of view, does this mean that animal welfare is always secondary to human life and human well-being?
I don't know. Anyone from a philosophical background here that wants to help me out? Always. I'm just struggling with the word always. Again, philosophical points of view are quite influenced also by context, right? So I don't know if there is an actual answer for your question. Does that mean animal welfare is always secondary to human life and human well-being? Apply to third world countries or all of countries? I think that at least politically, yes, it will always be secondary. I'm struggling with the philosophical, I'm sorry, of Maha. So I don't know if anyone would like to comment on these points of view, but
I think it will also depend on the
think
people.
yes, Bertie. Bert? Would you like to?
Nielsen, hi, yes.
Hello.
I think there is a confounding here of animal welfare science and ethics.
Yes.
Animal welfare science, we can assess the welfare of an animal using scientific methods. We can't measure welfare, but we can measure proxies that vary in the same way as the affective state of the animal. And we know this because we have tried it as humans, and we have different validated indicators of the affective state of the animal. And that is one thing. And then what we do, the harm benefit analysis, in a sense, are we allowed to do nasty things to animals, is a completely different issue, in my view.
Yes, thank you. That's why you don't need to turn your camera off, but that's why I struggle, because I work a lot with the part of evaluating. Obviously, I have my own ethical compass, and so I try and do, and help farmers do what what I also think is fairer for the animals. Comparing animal welfare to human life and human well-being, for me, is a bit out of my scope, as in it's quite a deep question. And I think that there are several books written exclusively on the subject. But if anyone else would like to comment on this, I would love to hear your opinions. Okay. Thank you so much. Is it Bertie? Your name?
Birte, but that's
Birte,
fine.
so I'm sorry. Okay, thank you so much, Birte. So I'll carry on, and if anyone else has something to add, please do. Right. So where were we? Okay. Again, coming into measuring animal welfare. So there are several perspectives on it. So we can try and understand what the animal feels. So is it feeling satisfaction, or is it feeling discomfort, pain, pleasure? But then again, this will come down to subjective analysis and risk of projecting our own feelings onto what the animal is going through. So might be difficult to evaluate. And then we can assess if there's correct biological function. So is the milk yield good? Sorry, did it stop sharing? Is the milk yield good? Daily gains, fertility, they're all top notch. Does this mean that animals have good welfare? Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I have to stop this again so I can see faces. There we go. Again, we have, as humanity, done an excellent work selecting animals to keep on giving when we talk about production. So dairy cows will give milk despite being extremely lame, extremely thin. Sows will keep on farrowing despite doing it in the cage over and over. Hens will keep on laying despite high densities and, you know, increased social pressure. So I do not love taking on indicators, production indicators especially, and then saying, okay, in the paper everything looks great, so it's probably great, because it normally is not. What I do love is advising farmers, making the changes, and then also seeing results on paper. That is then the cherry on top of the pie. So I don't think that assessing it simply will always clearly relate with welfare states. And then, as we talked about with the bunny before, proximity to natural states, yes, but natural behaviors do not always represent the best welfare, as we talked about. So we have to find maybe a better way of assessing animal welfare. Again, we are all more than familiar with the 5 freedoms, but nowadays in 2026, they were first described in 1965, if I'm not mistaken, with the Bramble Council. So 2026, 60 years later, are they still enough to evaluate animal welfare? Is this all that we need to guarantee that our animals have welfare? Yes, definitely. We should still stick to them, but also, and here comes maybe a familiar surname, because this is my father. He's been working with animal welfare for the past in mostly ruminants, but overall for the past 40 years. And he says, and I agree, that's why it's here, that there is now growing recognition that animal welfare, it's not only about the absence of negative welfare indicator, but also the presence of positive welfare indicators, which is a new approach, and it started surfacing now with the LIFT project, which is a project similar to the aWISH, but regarding the search for positive welfare indicators across the several species that we work with. And so this is an interesting new approach to defining and evaluating animal welfare, because now we're bringing into the equation new indicators that haven't been studied or validated before, that will, I hope, bring a lot of enlightenment to animal welfare. And again, in the end, and we'll talk in the end again about this, but are we able to justify what goes wrong or the negative parts of an animal's life with the positives? I think that goes back to the bunny, the wild bunny slide, or the different types of life that rabbits can have slide, which is, when do the negative experiences become unacceptable, regardless of the overall balance? So is it enough for a bull to live 5 years out, normally 4, out in the field, great life? Does being ran in the end of its life justify? Is it enough to for these people to say, well, it's lived a great life up until now, and now it's got a few minutes of stress and a few hours until it goes to the slaughterhouse. It's still a little bit up in the air because also there are so many different variables attached to it. And in the end, what can we use nowadays to assess welfare in the most objective way that we can, and in the fairest way that we can? So, talking about the intensive production, but also the aWIN protocols were built for a few species on extensive grounds. So I think these are quite useful tools, but they are far from being perfect tools. I do work with them a lot because they're also very easy to communicate to farmers. And here starts the beginning of our communication, which is here we have an objective way of measuring welfare. All of these protocols are divided in 4 principles, which is the good feeding, good housing, good health, appropriate behavior. I think everyone here is probably very familiar with at least a structure of these protocols. But in the end, I do have something very objective, very readable that I can hand out to the farmer and say, okay, here is what we need to work. This is what we need to improve. I think that overall your welfare might be acceptable, but still you have some red flags here. Let's try and focus on that. And we'll come to the certifications part, which are very different, but unfortunately, the welfare quality and aWIN assessment protocols have been very linked to the welfare certification. They can still be used and should still be used independently. They are very well structured and they've involved brilliant minds and lengthy studies. So I think it's a good way to start with to actually know what is going on regarding welfare in a certain farm. Okay, let's start with the communication part in itself. So it's a common saying that animals do not care about how we feel. They only care about how we act towards them. Up to a certain point, this is true. I do not believe this to be 100% true. I think that we will always, the way we act will always reflect the way we feel, even if we don't exactly, or even if we try not to. But yes, at least if you don't feel great towards an animal, at least try and act accordingly and do the best for it. But people do care about how we feel, and communicating, we're talking here about people to people. So this is something that we cannot leave behind, is showing how we feel and trying to be fair about what we say and about what we communicate. So Maha, here is what you are talking about, I believe. There is a big confusion between these two concepts. I am all pro humanizing. I do humanize every animal that I see, and I do try and relate without anthropomorphizing. I'm sorry about the word. It will be messy every time I say it. Humanizing is simply recognizing animals as sentient beings. Okay, so we are just saying, okay, I know this pig is not a person, but I do know it feels pain. I do know it feels a range of emotions. I do know it feels heat and cold, hunger and thirst, and I do too. So I should be more empathic towards its suffering and its experiences. Yeah. humanizing should always be based on science and evidence. I don't need to go and read a paper explaining that biologically a pig feels hungry when it's not fed. It's an animal, a live animal. I am also a live animal. I also feel hungry. I think that's enough evidence. When we talk about things that are not as palpable, or if go on to the emotional field of experiences, then we risk being, we risk anthropomorphizing animals, which is projecting human traits and emotions, not emoticons, I'm sorry, onto animals. So this will immediately, this posture will immediately assume that an animal thinks and feels like a human, okay, which they do not. Humans don't even think and feel like other humans, much less animals. So this is risky grounds, and this will get us in trouble. So again, based on human emotions and experiences can lead to incorrect conclusions and will risk overlooking species-specific needs and behavior. So this will go back to the bunny on the end of the leash. Okay, so because I love that bunny so much, immediately I assume that it feels my love and that love is enough. And whatever I feel like, and the word here is feel and not know, whatever I feel like that animal should have and wants, it should also have and want because I love it so much. Again, risky grounds. We are overlooking what that animal needs. A rabbit on a leash seems absolutely natural to me. And I didn't take a picture because I didn't have the nerve to, but the other day I was walking in Campo Grande, which is a large garden in Lisbon, where everyone goes and walks their dogs, okay? And there was a bunny on the leash. I don't think that animal could be any more stressed with all of the pointers running around. Even if they weren't harassing the bunny, the whole present is just stressful. But again, that owner thought it was doing the best for its rabbit because it was taking it out for a nice walk. So I don't know if this answers a little bit of your question, Maha, but again, I'll bring the difference between humanizing and anthropomorphizing, which is I actually haven't had, but many people have had ingrown toenails, which they say it's absolutely excruciating pain. But then, this is a slide again that I use for farmers, so I think it works quite well. So why do we think it's okay for our sheep to have foot rot and not do anything to prevent it instead of just spraying blue spray onto it? So if it hurts something so small, why won't it hurt my sheep that much? Or a paper cut. So annoying. Paper cuts, it makes us, almost throw a chair against the wall every time we have a paper cut, and it bothers us for days. But then again, we assume that tail docking piglets under 7 days old is less painful than if they're above 7 days old, because no evidence, we don't know, it's just faster, they're easier to handle. And it scars, doesn't scar quickly. So we cannot assume that this is less painful for piglets than it would be for us. Or for example, nowadays we talk so much, I don't know about everyone's countries. In Portugal is another hot topic, which is obstetrics violence. So when women aren't allowed to give birth the way they wanted, in the positions they wanted, follow their birth plan as they wanted to, I think it's fair. I think it's great that women talk, but then why do we think this is any different? Again, science, more than clear, more than evident, that sows that are able to walk around while they are farrowing will have quicker birth, more live piglets, less stress, etc., etc. Summer is starting, it's boiling hot everywhere now. We all love our AC, we all love our fans, but we forget to give our dairy cows some shades. Even at 25 degrees, they're already like this. This is not a 40-degree day. So again, we've all been afraid of something, even if it was when we were, if mothers and fathers know exactly what fear is like. So everyone who here has a child know exactly what it is to fear for their life, even if it is for half a second that it seems like they're going to fall down the stairs, nothing bad happened, but there's a new gray hair every time it happens. So why do we think animals are not sensitive to fear? Why do we think that animals do not suffer from this emotion if we know it so well? So here comes the difference. Okay, we're not projecting anything. We're just saying that if it does happen to me, this animal will probably be able to feel something similar. And if it's an unpleasant experience, we'll try and mitigate it. And if it's a pleasant experience, we'll try and promote it. But always being very careful. Final part, I have no idea what time it is. I will talk for hours. Okay, we're good, aren't we? We're good. So coming on to the sensitive topics that we face nowadays. Going back to what we talked about, I think we can conclude that communicating is more than just spitting out technical or theoretical information, is more than quoting papers, is more than saying, I read this somewhere, or this is what that person said ages ago, so it must still be valid. When we communicate animal welfare, we need to know our science, but we also need to be empathetic or empathic. I'm sorry, and transparent. I think that one of the reasons me and my team have been working with animal welfare for so long, and farmers are still sticking with us, is that we are very transparent about how we feel, but we are also empathic about their conditions. So we are always trying to find that balance, saying, I do not agree with this. I don't think this is all right. I understand that now might not be the best time to change. Let's try and make a plan. Let's try and stick together, face the road that we have ahead of us, but also acknowledge that we do need to change. And this is the same thing that we need to, the same posture that we need to assume when we're talking about animal welfare. Our language is very important, the way we use it. So we can always be very direct, very transparent, very empathic, but do it in the right way. Here I've got 4 phrases about big trim. Sorry. They all go down to the same subject, same problem, but they have been said by different people in different environments, in different contexts. So we can say, and when I'm talking to students mostly, because students are an interesting slice of the society, especially vet students or technician students, anything that's related to agriculture and farming students, because they want to comprehend and they want to get there. They don't want to immediately judge, but they do not know enough yet. Okay, so they're not that slice of the society that is extremely judgmental and hard to talk to, or the slice that is very technical and knowledgeable, and sometimes equally hard to talk to because they have their profound beliefs and many times they are wrong. So I will use this type of language with my students, which is using fairly technical terms, but still keep it, simple. So big trimming is important to reduce packing, and then I will explain what packing is and the differences between just not normal natural packing order and injurious packing. And then also explain the consequences of not trimming beaks and how devastating they can be. So keeping it very objective, not saying that it should always be done or it shouldn't be done at any time, but saying that it is important to prevent worst case scenarios. But then we will have people saying, normally outside of the agricultural world, saying that part of the bird's beak is removed to prevent chickens from, it says pecking each other, but sometimes it even says from exhibiting natural behaviors like pecking order, or chickens are mutilated because the production systems cannot prevent an abnormal behavior. I don't say that I exactly disagree. It does not prevent expression of natural behavior, and there is a big difference between appropriate beak trimming and beak trimming done wrong, and those do have a massive impact on the chicken's life. So I think that's another type of message that we need to bring forward, is you can do it right. It can be fairly painless, and chickens can lead a normal life after beak trimming, or it can be very poorly done. Chickens can live with a butchered beak for their entire life, and that, in my opinion, now in 2026 is what needs to be taught, is we need to be trimming beaks appropriately, and I don't think that stopping it now would do any favor to anyone. And again, we can be even a bit more transparent in saying, yes, it is a controversial procedure, as I just did. So saying it can be done wrongly, and when it's done wrongly, it is a problem. When it's done correctly, it prevents problems and still maintains acceptable quality of life and balance regarding these chickens. And then we come to what has happened to reassure consumers that animals are raised with best welfare practices. There are many, many more certifications around the world. Each day, I think they're appearing even more certifications, but they all have a problem. They all represent mainly a picture on the day that that farm is visited, and not the 365 days in a year that those animals live in the farm. And that comes and brings us to problems like this. Everyone's got a camera in their pockets nowadays. Everyone wants to, not everyone, but a lot of people want to have a little bit of spotlight, and also a lot of people are against intensive farming. It's fair to do so. I still think it's an essential part of our economy to feed everyone in the world, intensive farming, but well, it's fair, everyone's got to fight for what they believe. Okay, but then these things come up. These were all farms that were certified for animal welfare. Okay, what happened to these farms, and what do these people do after these images came up? Does anyone know? Very little. Very little. A lot of these farm owners prefer to hide in silence than to come forward and acknowledge and talk about what happened. So I was invited to go on to do an interview about one of these farms when the images were leaked. I think that's or were what's the word? Denunciadas. When these conditions were can someone help me? I'm having a blank. Well, when these farms were accused of...
When they were reported.
Reported, thank you. Yes, thank you. So when these farms were reported, one of these farms, I was invited to go and talk about the images. I consulted with many people because I always think it's dangerous to sit in front of a TV camera looking at images for the first time and then not exactly knowing what is going on to happen with the editing of that report. And in the end, I ended up saying no, for also in fairness to the colleagues that work at the farms, because I knew it was not their responsibility. I talked to them, and I didn't think it would be fair to go on to the public TV, talk about images that I was not going to be able to say was okay or was acceptable, because we need to be able to do that. We need to, at first, acknowledge the concern and not be afraid to say, yes, this is not okay. This is a welfare problem. I do not know what happened here. I need to gather my facts first, and then I'll talk. And that's one thing that didn't leave me comfortable, was that I wasn't going to be able to see the images, so I wasn't going to be able to have the facts before talking about what I was seeing. So basically, I was going to sit there and say, I do not have all the facts. I have no idea what happened. I don't know what day this was. We had many aspects that could be justified or not. But again, to start with, acknowledge the concern, but also gather the facts before going any further into talking about animal welfare problems. Be transparent, say it's a problem, we're going to do the best we can about it, but also act quickly and come forward. Don't be silent. Silence is immediately linked to guilt, and it will not help anyone. And don't make up excuses that then are going to be, seen. They're going to be seen as just a cheap excuse for what happened. So assume responsibilities, show empathy, and then focus on corrective actions. Correct it, show you're correcting it, provide training, remove animals that are in poor welfare conditions, find solutions. Because if you just come up and say something but do nothing, then I think that's not going to go great for anyone. Use clear language. Don't be too technical or too arrogant. Just be simple, humble, clear language. Say what happened for real, and then show how you're trying to fix it. But do not ignore the allegations. Do not react defensively. And reacting defensively will also count as, for example, that image back there, pigs do love to roll around in their feces like they do in the mud. Everyone knows that's not true. We're past that time. So don't say animals are just animals. Don't react like you are the victim there because you've just been reported. Do not speculate. So again, gather the facts first. Do not minimize the issue. Don't say it's just one farm and you own 200 farms. So what's one out of the 200? Go and look at the other 199 farms and all of your animals are fine on the other farms. That will not help your cause, even if it's just one animal. Don't blame it on your workers. Don't blame it on immigrant workers, which now seem to be quite an scapegoat, and it's honestly sad to watch. And don't just wait for things to disappear, because they won't. In the mean, you will remain a target if you've been reported for one of these situations. So sooner or later, things will come back. And the quicker you show that you're trying to do better, the less likely it is to come back with even harsher consequences. And again, acknowledge the problem, ask the questions in your team. So if you do this, on the inside, if it is for yourself, if it is for with your own team, then you'll have a better way of communicating what happened, what went wrong, what are you trying to do better, what are you going to do to try not happen, for it not to happen again. So clear case of a client, terrible, and this is what I'm talking about, tail biting, awful. Terrible tail biting outbreaks. We went on, reduce densities, improve environmental temperature, added toys. Oops, what's going on? Still dock the tails. We'll keep docking tails, but tail docking has disappeared. Tail biting has practically disappeared in this farm, and now these farmers can actually show that they did something. They had an actual plan. They put it into action, and the results are at sight. I'm going to pass this. This is also this is another graph that I show farmers to choose where they want to work. Do not go into the cruelty zone. We understand you need to work in a profitable area, so welfare might not be 10 out of 10, might not be exceptional, but you can always try and find the top of your hill, the top of your curve, and do and show that you're trying to do the best that you can. And you can always do a little bit better. Oh, look at the pig. This is another pig in Lisbon. This is a real picture. Anyway, so again, do we have a problem? It's another question that is interesting to ask. So you can be reported, and then you can ask this question: I was reported, but do I actually have a problem? Does this, am I providing what this species needs? Am I projecting what I feel onto the species? Yeah, and again, can we do better? Where can we find the balance? But in the end, guarantee that the solution is an actual improvement, because from left to right, we might have our doubts about which animal has better welfare. We do not have enough information. So if you are going to change, please try and change for the best. And that can only be done by really making a plan. Obviously, plans fail, but advising accordingly, and then again, showing that you have thought about these problems, you have answered these questions, and that you are trying your best. Images are powerful. So on the top left, we have tie stalls for cows. Immediately, especially in some countries, tie stalls are a common practice. In other countries, tie stalls are not very well looked at. But just by looking at this picture and saying, well, these are tight, I'm only seeing the tip of an iceberg, because I have no idea of what these cows' lives are. Maybe they're just tied for the night and milking, and they'll go out, or even if they lived in tie stalls their whole life, living in free stalls is not mandatorily better. So on the bottom, we have a farm where it's hard to assess because it wasn't easy to take a picture, but behind, so you can see all the cubicles in the back are occupied, the floor in the back is occupied, all the places at the manger are occupied, and behind the cows at the feeder, the floor was covered in these were heifers, in laying heifers laying on the floor. So these cows, even though they live in free stalls, they didn't even have enough space to all lay down at the same time. So again, just looking at the picture, we do not have enough information. Or again, when we look at this ideal, perfect, this looks great, this looks like a great life for a cow, and then temperatures rise and we come up to heat stress. Heat stress is a terrible welfare problem in the cows. What can we do? What coping conditions are being provided? So I do see this cow. Okay, she's panting, she's breathing fast. But if I look around, is there shade available? Yes. Is there space under the shade? Yes. So this cow is probably laying down, got a bit too hot then, but it does have the opportunity to get up and find shade. If this didn't exist, then again, I would have a problem. So one picture, dangerous, cannot assume, again, that we have all the facts. Again, slaughterhouses, sensitive topics. Slaughterhouses are not pretty places to be. Slaughterhouses are loud, smelly, and scary, honestly. But again, if we looked at this first picture, what can we see? We can see a pig being desensitized and lifted onto the hoist to then be bled. But I do know this slaughterhouse, and this would be just the tip of the iceberg because animals were raised beautifully. I do know the farms and the slaughterhouse. Animals were raised very well. They were transported very well. They were desensitized very appropriately. Death was very quick and painless because I did the welfare evaluation on them, and they were 100% well desensitized. It's not a pretty slaughterhouse. It does have a lot of things to change, but regarding the time of death, I think everything was good. Then after, I don't know the word, after the boiling of the carcass of the pig, you could see all of these scratch marks. Okay, this was a problem to me. These represented stress after unloading from the truck. You could not see these on the live animals, but then they become very evident. These are bite marks from other pigs. And so we regrouped and we rethought about the groups that were in the waiting pens and how could we reduce stress. And I think that the results were acceptable. They're still not perfect. We're working towards that. But again, one image from a slaughterhouse is not enough to conclude. We need to gather all the facts and we need to answer these questions and then communicate, see where the problem is, and in the end, also make a plan and show evolution. And to end, this is my almost last slide. So the big question of all, again, do the negative experiences compensate, or do the positive compensate for the negative? So does living outdoor compensate for having to look for food? And this is not a client of mine. He does well. The lamb on the left is not a client, clearly, but on the right, yes. So this is the state of the water in the summer. This is the state of the food in the pans in the summer. They do dock tails. So is it enough to live outdoors and then spend 3 or 4 months per year under these conditions? I considered not. We installed new water troughs, and we installed a few hay feeders for the sheep because their body condition was poor in the summer. And now I do think that if they do want to dock the tails of their lambs, even though we are trying to quit that, at least they have a bit better condition to live, even if it's outdoor. So, the end, principles of communicating animal welfare: acknowledge the concern, listen before explaining, gather the facts, use clear language and be transparent, and focus dialogue and not persuasion. I didn't talk a lot about trust, but people are more likely to agree with someone they trust and don't like, but trust, which are different things, than with someone that they don't trust. If you can't build trust, then it's going to be very hard to communicate anything, because other people are not going to listen. And in the end, the objective is not to defend the industry at all costs. We don't have to go and try and justify everything and look for an explanation to everything, or an explanation that can be presented to the general audience. Sometimes you just have to demonstrate that you are committed to animal welfare, that you have spotted the problem, and that you are going to take accountability and continue to improve and put it out there that you are trying to improve. And again, it's a long road, but I think that at least it's going in the right direction. Thank you so much for your time. I hope it wasn't too long. I do get lost, get a bit lost in time, but I think we are just on schedule, right?
Yes,
yeah.
we are.
Oh, reported, Ines. Thank you.
We have enough time for some questions. If someone has something to ask Katarina, I have a couple of them, if no one comes forward.
Everything's feeling shame. Or everyone's asleep, which is also fair.
No, I don't think so. It was really interesting, Katarina. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maybe I can ask one of the questions first. Okay. I was thinking about if you feel that we are doing enough in communicating and educating on this topic. So I'm thinking more about the education system. Do you think that what we are doing is enough? What should we change? What should we do?
I'm not going to talk about other realities, because I don't know about other countries. So if anyone wants to share, I would love to know. But I think that the education system is going a bit in the opposite direction, as in making agriculture the bad guy, which is very concerning. In Portugal, we had a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, the school manuals for the little kids. They must have been like 6th graders or 9th graders, or something like that, would say that that environmental changes are caused by cows and farming and all of that. So just give me a second. I'm sorry for interrupting.
If someone else has any questions, feel
I'm
free
so
to
sorry.
share them
I'm
in
so
the
sorry.
chat. That's okay, Katerina.
So educational systems, I don't think anyone talks about animal welfare. I went to vet school, and even then, welfare was not a very. We talked about behavioral medicine, not welfare. Nowadays, yes, the universities are starting to do more masters in animal welfare. There's the European College more. So, but higher grounds. I think that before university, no one talks about animal welfare in schools, which is sad, really sad. Otherwise, I do think that the sector could do more, could come together a bit better and communicate about. I've tried, but farmers do not want to open up to what's going on to outsiders. So you do have to have an exquisite farm to allow people from outside to visit, because it's always a risk, and I understand, and I do not want to pressure anyone, but we should show and open doors a bit more to just show what is actually going on and what is not perfect, and what we know it's not perfect, but to resolve and are trying to resolve. But the sector does need to want to resolve it as well. So that's another conversation. But I do think we should communicate more about animal welfare, real animal welfare, because I think we are losing to activists, which again, sometimes are right, sometimes are not. And when they are not, we're still staying silent.
Yeah, that links to my second question. That is about what are our next steps, basically, in communicating animal welfare. I think we need to start with small steps, all of us. But what are those steps?
Yes, I think that we should, again, there are some very good farmers who, especially through Instagram, I don't have social networks, communicate beautifully what's going on in their farms. But when you compare how many people see those videos or communications to the ones who see, the slightly biased ones from other sources, it's still behind. I think the next step would actually to either create a team or come together as a unit to show the work that's been done, because in the past 5 years, I've got a lot of work to show regarding animal welfare. I don't exactly know how to do it, but there is a lot of work. There are a lot of projects like aWISH, and so yes, going mainstream. I think it's the word. So putting it out there, it's happening. It's not perfect, but everyone is working towards it becoming better. Well, at least some are. And the ones who are not, I honestly, the farmers that I see that are not concerned about animal welfare in their core, I think they will not last long.
Yep.
But I don't know how long.
We have another question here in the chat.
Stability. I like your PhD, Maha. That sounds very interesting. Yes, that's a great question. Ooh, yes, obviously, some degree of stress, like our mothers love telling us that stress creates no, adversity creates personalities. At least I don't know if it was just my mom, but it's something that I feel mom tell their kids. Yes, some degree of stress may support adaptability, but what do we want them to adapt to? So if we are staying fairly stable all the way up to slaughter, for example. So a calf is going to live in the feedlot for a year and then go on to a truck to slaughterhouse. I don't know if there's any type of stress that can improve their experience or help them adapt to that moment of their life. Honestly, from my experience and from all the science, the work that's been shown, I think we are talking more about cognitive development will help adapt to stressful situations and actual stressful environments. So, for example, piglets that undergo tail docking might be a bit too much. Vaccination, let's say, will not be more resilient than ones that haven't or that have gone through less stressful experiences. But for example, piglets that do have access to enrichment material, which helps develop cognitive behavior or cognitive capacities, do adapt better to weaning and to moving on to the fattening unit. So I don't know if your PhD sounds very interesting, but I don't know if we've been working quite a bit on environmental enrichment for calves, and that does seem to have amazing results on then adapting the heifers to first insemination, being handled back and forth. So seems quite interesting, but not from stressing point of view, more from the enriching experiences point of view. Elena, when communicating on welfare, what role do you think science plays? Yes, science needs to play a role. I think science still plays a very background role, and then it's filtered, and that filter isn't always ideal. Science needs to be the cornerstone of animal welfare. And whenever there are doubts about any, for example, Maha's, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but I'm really sorry if I'm not. PhD is a great example of that. Is there a question? Let's answer it with science. And by science, we mean well-prepared, well-designed studies, good animal samples, proper peer review. Nowadays, peer reviewing might be a bit, or publishing might be a bit easy, and peer reviewing might be facilitated. But for the general public, I think that, again, science does need a filter, because if I start sharing papers, I'm not, people are going to change the channel. And so we need to have good people communicating in front of real life scenarios, but saying, okay, so this is why we do this, because according to these studies, this results better for this species at this certain age under these types of systems. So I don't know. If you want to turn your cameras on and your microphones on, please do. So you can talk back to me about what I'm saying. But yes, I think that definitely does need to be the basis of it all. Because science also, we didn't talk about it, but science, you can also show empathy through science. Yes, you can design your scientific studies based on feeling empathic for certain causes, and then, well, your studies will show it or not if it's your hypothesis is true, but you don't need to disconnect the two of them. Yes, Ines.
Hi, hello, Katarina, and thank you for the presentation. I guess my question, we talked a lot about the communication with and between farmers and the general public. And I was wondering if you have had any experience communicating to policymakers and politicians in the stage. And if you have, what are the challenges?
No, okay, so not policymakers, but the authorities in Portugal, yes. So, so I haven't been to Brussels to talk about animal welfare, but I have had several meetings with the authorities here in Portugal. Overall, I think that let me think for a bit, because I do not want to generalize what I know go on in Portugal. So in Portugal, we are a bit of a follower of what comes out of Brussels. Okay, so European Commission puts out new directives and new laws, and we just copy paste them onto our law. Are you from Spain?
Yes, I am.
Yes, Spain does.
I work in the UK, so a bit of everything.
Spain does a bit more. Spain has the real decree, and so it does go a bit further than what is said in Brussels. And I think that at least there was some dialogue, because it's very hard for the European Commission to put out something that then applies to all of the countries, right? Because realities are so different. And so local authorities, the countries, also need to grab what the European Commission decrees and say, okay, this is a great baseline, but in our country, we can do a little bit more. We can go a bit further. So we need to do these for sure. And now, what else is our country prepared to do? I feel very it just drains a lot of energy for me to talk to these people, because from one side there are the policymakers who want to follow an agenda and also guarantee that they will be re-elected, or their party will be will continue to be popular. There is a lot of lobbying being done for the good and for the bad. And then there are just those passive agents who just shrug and say, this is what it is, this is what they tell us to do, and they do not add anything to the equation. So I cannot answer your question very fairly, because unfortunately I think that there are great groups lobbying for animal welfare, but there are also very, very heavy players lobbying for the opposite. I'm not going to say the opposite of animal welfare. It's not like anyone is against animal welfare per se, but the evolution of legislation. We are seeing that with the end decade age, right? So the pig industry is a giant, and they do not want to keep sows from farrowing in crates. And even, if you go and think about the piglet welfare, the crates are better because they're not smashed by the sows, but also if the sows are given enough conditions, they will not crush the piglets. So it is a debate. We were hoping for new legislation this year. It did not happen because, unfortunately, there is more to it than just pure animal welfare. I'm just going to read it here. I don't know if you have something to say, Inés. What's your experience then?
No, I don't technically work in policy or anything, but I was just curious because I guess the discourse or the communication style will probably change depending. So we were talking with the general public and then general audiences and the impact of an image or a short video more than a 30-page report, blah, blah, blah. But obviously, I was wondering, we were talking about, you talked about all the stakeholders. I was wondering, okay, what about because I think from my opinion, this is my personal experience, of course, and it's about something you just said, actually, about policymakers that are just followers. General public can be just followers. They'll just follow what they see, and then, or what, so then, how do you say, from me, I'm thinking like in terms of impact, real impact of in animal welfare, I'm thinking, right, so if a lot of countries, well, a lot, in this case, you talk specifically about Portugal, but if there are countries out there that what the position is to follow the European Commission directives, then influencing these directives and making the bar, like increasing the bar from that perspective, will actually just cascade, like have more impact. And then it's the same, similarly with the general public, right? Like if a lot of people have strong opinions and those will be very difficult to be changed. But I feel, again, this is based on just my personal experience. People just go to the supermarket, but try to find, just they're more passive about it. And then if we increase the bar from like the source, then
yes, definitely. Well, I didn't.
So that's why I was wondering if the communication, because I'm interested on that topic, obviously. If the communication, because we're talking about communication, like, and you were saying, the challenges of lobbying and agendas, I guess the way you communicate with that sector has to be adapted to that political agenda. Do you inform yourself before of the political agenda, or just go like, I'm just going to say my piece and see what happens?
Yes. Are you asking if I informed myself of the political agenda?
Yeah, how does it work basically on those environments?
I think that's why I didn't go into the politics parts, because it's not my at all. I feel that I work on the farms with the farmers, and then I see what they go through. Farms and slaughterhouses, see what they go through, and trying to many times doing the right thing and still coming out as the bad guy. Regarding the political agenda, what I do see is that we are communicated, for example, by the authorities here, the GAV, that the law is going to change. So we are going to move on to free farrowing pens. We are going to increase the space allowance for calves. And overall densities are going to reduce, etc. We've been waiting and we've been working with our farmers to be prepared for that scenario. And then for political reasons, those did not come through. I don't know if anyone knows what is going to happen, if anyone had the same inputs about this, but yes, I do stay out of the political world, also because I do not have enough time to do it.
Fine. Yeah, fair.
We're always at the farms. So I have
Thank you.
something else here, which is Elena, thank you. This is very interesting. I've heard of your organization, and I think your work is very interesting, but it's I invite everyone also to visit and see Elena's message. And then Neil says, what I notice is that scientists are doing great work to improve welfare, but sometimes this is far from implementable reality. That's true. Different scenarios, contexts, etc. There should also be the science work on how what was discovered in research can be practical to be implemented on farms and still be sustainable and of economical value to farmers. Absolutely right. Researchers need to keep in mind that in the end of the day, it is the farmers who are working every day continuously with the animals to feed the society. At the end, it's important to keep different stakeholders, farmers, advisors, researchers, and policymakers well engaged with each other and have clear communication with open discussions between them. Yes, I agree with you, Neil. A lot of the papers we read are very theoretical. I do believe that then they move on to, or someone else picks the more just theoretical work and tries and apply it to the reality of the farms. But like you say, it also comes down to it always also comes down to this open discussions. Meaning, I will grab a paper that seems interesting. I know that it's not feasible for farms that I work with, but I can always try and use my imagination and see how could I adjust the results that are there to the farm. But this is a lot of work. You need to go through the papers, you need to go through the farms, you need to talk to farmers, try and convince them to implement something that is not written, it's going to work. So yes, it would be great to have more studies done at the farm under real context with little interference. But again, there are some things you can always take from the papers. For example, this one that I was talking about, the piglets with the cognitive exercises. It's a whole setting of labyrinths and different pen designs, which obviously would not work at the farm. But then in the end, you can take from that if you do give something to piglets, that will help them cope with what comes after. So, we'll try, and then a lot of try and error. A lot of farmers a bit angry at us because we made them spend money on things that did not work, but we're always very appreciative. And in the end, I think that maybe one thing we should do is share more about what goes on in the farms that work, but is not published. I would like to also do there are some interesting projects as well. Bovine was an interesting project, broiler net as well, to share experiences, but again, maybe find a more informal way to communicate. Listen, I've done this in these calves or these piglets, and then yes, the well farmers, yes, project is one of those. Exactly, like I was saying, I didn't mention well farmers, but here, it's still Neil saying, because it does open the discussion to farm reality. Okay, people are saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We are just in time. Thank
Yes.
you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Katarina, for a very, very interesting presentation. I think everyone enjoyed it. Please make sure to check our website. I just send it to the chat. We have there a lot of results, and we will add a lot more. We will also have an e-course that you can use with your students, for example, with a lot of information about the aWISH technologies and animal welfare in general, animal welfare indicators. So please make sure to to keep checking our social media channels and our websites, and follow FarmIN to learn more about animal production and animal welfare. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your week and a good weekend after that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.